Welcome to another explosive episode of Ranting Politics Headline Updates, where we break down the biggest stories shaping our world today. We've got a packed show that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Coming up, we're diving into a major cyber breach at the U.S. Treasury Department, where Chinese state-sponsored hackers managed to slip through the digital defenses. You won't believe how they pulled it off. Then we're tracking President Biden's race against time as he pushes out nearly $6 billion in military and economic aid to Ukraine before Trump takes the reins. It's a story of high-stakes politics and international strategy playing out in real time. And speaking of Trump, we've got some fresh drama as Russia's top diplomat just threw cold water on Team Trump's unofficial peace proposals for Ukraine. Let's just say Moscow isn't exactly jumping for joy at the suggested solutions. Stick around as we unpack all these stories and more, right here on Ranting Politics Headline Updates. In what's being described as a major incident, Chinese state-sponsored hackers have managed to breach the U.S. Treasury Department's security defenses. The Treasury Department dropped this bombshell on lawmakers yesterday, and let me tell you, the details are pretty wild. Here's how it went down. On December 8th, Treasury officials got word from their third-party software provider, Beyond Trust, that something was seriously wrong. These hackers had somehow gotten their hands on a security key, think of it as a digital master key, that gave them access to Treasury workstations and unclassified documents. Now, according to Aditi Hardikar, the Treasury's Assistant Secretary for Management, this wasn't just any old cyber attack. We're talking about what they call an advanced persistent threat actor, and they're pointing the finger straight at China. The Treasury's already yanked the compromised service offline and brought in the big guns. We're talking the FBI, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and even U.S. intelligence agencies to figure out exactly what happened. While Treasury officials are saying there's no evidence these hackers still have access to their systems, they're taking this seriously enough to schedule a classified briefing with the House Financial Services Committee next week. The full extent of the damage? That's still under investigation, but we know several Treasury workstations were compromised. This breach is particularly concerning because it happened through a back door. The hackers didn't break down the front door, they basically copied a key to the side entrance through this third-party service provider. It's a stark reminder that in today's interconnected world, your security is only as strong as your weakest link, even if that link belongs to someone else. As reported by CNN, this situation has been officially classified as a major cybersecurity incident, and the Treasury has 30 days to provide a full report on what exactly went down. Stay tuned, folks. Something tells me this story isn't over yet. President Biden is making some serious moves in what could be his final weeks of controlling Ukraine policy, announcing a massive $5.9 billion aid package that's raising eyebrows across Washington. According to AP reports, this includes $2.5 billion in military assistance and $3.4 billion in economic support, and the timing here couldn't be more significant. The military aid package is split into two parts: $1.25 billion in immediate assistance through what's called Presidential Drawdown Authority, basically pulling weapons straight from U.S. military shelves, and another $122 billion for longer-term weapons contracts. Biden's not being subtle about his urgency here, folks. He's explicitly directed his administration to, in his words, continue surging as much assistance to Ukraine as quickly as possible. The shopping list for Ukraine's military is pretty extensive. We're talking counter-drone systems, air defense munitions, HIMARS ammunition, both 155mm and 105mm artillery rounds, air-to-ground munitions, anti-armor systems, and even tube-launched missiles. But it's not just about the hardware. That $3.4 billion in economic assistance Treasury Secretary Yellen announced, that's going straight to keeping Ukraine's government running, paying salaries for civilian workers, teachers, healthcare workers, and first responders. This push comes at a critical moment, with Russia ramping up attacks on Ukraine's power facilities and a fierce battle raging around the Russian border region of Kursk, where Moscow's reportedly deployed North Korean troops. The timing isn't coincidental either. There's clear concern in Washington about what happens after January 20th. With Trump's inauguration looming and his talk of pursuing a negotiated settlement with Putin, Biden's team is racing to give Ukraine as much leverage as possible before the transition. Since Russia's invasion in February 2022, U.S. security assistance to Ukraine has now topped $65 billion. And with Biden's statement that all longer-term USAI funds have been allocated and his intention to use every remaining dollar of drawdown authority, it's clear the administration is determined to lock in as much support as possible while they still can. In a major blow to Trump's hopes for a quick resolution to the Ukraine conflict, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has firmly rejected proposals from Trump's allies even before they've officially hit the negotiating table. Speaking to Russian state media TASS, Lavrov didn't mince words about Moscow's stance on these unofficial peace plans. The ideas floating around from Trump's camp, including a 20-year postponement of Ukraine's NATO membership and stationing British and European peacekeeping forces in Ukraine, were dismissed outright. Lavrov made it crystal clear that Russia would reject Ukraine's NATO membership regardless of any territorial considerations. What's particularly interesting is Trump's approach to these negotiations. While he's been claiming he could end the war within 24 hours of taking office, he's keeping his actual plan under wraps. In his recent Time magazine interview, Trump argued that making his proposal public would render it worthless. He's also pushing back against concerns that he'd simply hand over eastern Ukrainian territory to Russian forces without proper protections for Kyiv. Behind the scenes, Trump's team, including his designated special envoy to Ukraine, retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, has been floating some interesting strategies. Their approach involves using both carrots and sticks, threatening to cut off aid to Ukraine while simultaneously pressuring Putin with the prospect of increased weapons shipments. But Lavrov's not just skeptical about the peace proposals. He's throwing cold water on the entire prospect of improved U.S.-Russia relations under Trump, saying it would not be that simple. Even with Trump's potential return to the White House, Lavrov believes he'll face an uphill battle against what he calls a bipartisan consensus on the policy of deterring Russia. While Putin has expressed openness to meeting with Trump and talks about wanting a lasting peace, Lavrov's comments suggest that any real progress would require fundamental changes in the American approach. As he put it, if the Americans respect our interests, our dialogue will be gradually renewed. If not, everything will remain as it is. Let's connect the dots on today's stories because what we're seeing is a perfect storm of national security challenges as we approach this presidential transition. The Chinese hack of the Treasury Department isn't just another cyber incident. It's happening right as we're dealing with massive shifts in our Ukraine policy and international relationships. Think about the timing here. While we're rushing billions in aid to Ukraine and dealing with complex peace negotiations, Chinese state actors are rifling through Treasury workstations. This isn't just about stealing documents, it's about understanding our financial leverage and vulnerabilities at a crucial moment in global politics. The Biden administration's sprint to send military and economic aid to Ukraine before January speaks volumes about the deep policy divisions we're facing. We're looking at a potential whiplash in foreign policy that our adversaries are clearly paying attention to. The Treasury breach could give China valuable insights into how we're managing these international commitments and sanctions programs. Russia's flat-out rejection of Trump's unofficial peace proposals adds another layer of complexity. They're essentially saying they won't play ball with the next administration's approach while simultaneously exploiting this transition period. This creates a perfect opportunity for both Russia and China to test our resolve and probe our defenses. What's particularly concerning is how these challenges are converging just as we're heading into a presidential transition. We've got one administration making long-term commitments while another is signaling major policy shifts, all while our adversaries are actively working to understand and potentially exploit these divisions. The real question moving forward is how these interrelated challenges will affect our national security posture. We're not just talking about military aid or cyber defense in isolation anymore. We're looking at a complex web of financial security, military commitments, and diplomatic relationships that are all in flux at the same time. And let's be clear, both China and Russia are watching how we handle this transition period very carefully. The Treasury breach, the Ukraine aid push, and Russia's diplomatic positioning aren't isolated incidents. They're all part of a larger strategic picture that will shape international relations well into the next administration. Well, folks, that wraps up another packed episode of Ranting Politics Headline Updates. We've covered some major ground today, From Chinese hackers breaching the Treasury Department's systems to Biden's massive final aid package for Ukraine and Russia's cold shoulder to Trump's peace proposals. These stories paint a picture of a nation at a critical crossroads, facing challenges from multiple directions as we approach a significant transition in leadership. The stakes couldn't be higher, and you can bet we'll be keeping a close eye on how these situations develop. For all the latest updates on these stories and more, make sure you're following us on X at RantingRP. And don't forget to visit rantingpolitics.com, where we dive even deeper into the day's biggest political developments. You can also now find us on YouTube and Amazon's Audible app. We are truly blessed with the continued support we are receiving around North America, and we will continue to expand the platforms we serve. Thanks for tuning in today. Keep questioning, keep thinking critically, and that's a wrap on headline updates for 2024. Happy New Year, America!